understand the process.
Right.
What is taking so long? How can this take so long?
Well, what I can tell you on the state side, what we are doing, we are focusing, conducting the investigation, trying to process the scene. We do have the local law enforcement here in Uvalde, county officials that are working together with volunteers, trying to identify the families and reunite them with their children, and also identify those that may have lost their life, and trying to identify those families as well and make those notifications. So we're working together, but again, it's a very active scene. There's so much going on right now. Of course, there's a lot of undetermined answers right now that we're trying to put together. But of course, our priority also, everyone else here and law enforcement that's working here is trying to reunite these children with their families and try to provide them answers as fast as possible.
How difficult is it to identify these victims?
Well, it is difficult, right? And the thing that we want to make sure is that we conduct a thorough investigation. Even though the suspect is deceased, we want to make sure we have a thorough investigation so we can provide some type of closure to the families to put the pieces together to determine exactly what were the motives behind this mass shooting. But of course, priority is also trying to identify the loss of life, so we can provide closure to those families also, so they can identify those children and also anybody else that may have witnessed the scene, because we understand it's very traumatic for them as well. Teachers, anybody that was involved in that school, even law enforcement that responded to that scene, is very traumatic for them. So we have special volunteers on site, our victim services, they help out with this type of situations for these mass shootings or any type of critical incident. So we have everybody on scene. We're trying to deploy as much resources as possible to help everybody.
And just to confirm, because I think there's been a back and forth of how many victims we have.
Right.
Can we get an update?
Right, so what I can tell you with accurate information, this is coming from the Texas Department of Public Safety, is that there's 19 children as of right now that are deceased, 2 adults, 2 of those are teachers from this school, and of course the gunman. So that provides a total of 23 deceased at this time.
And can you give us an understanding of what will happen through the night, and then also what we might see tomorrow? Because a lot of moving parts right now.
Right, there's a lot of moving parts, but of course our investigators are going to be out here throughout the entire night. I mean, right now they're focused on processing the scene, trying to gather as much evidence, talking to witnesses, seeing if there's any type of surveillance cameras, and also working with FBI to try to determine any type of prior history with the suspect, looking at social media platforms, trying to determine as much evidence as possible, because we also got to keep in mind too that what caused him to shoot his own grandmother that he was living with as well, right? And now this triggered another event. So we're trying to put all those pieces together and try to provide those answers to not only the community, but also to the families.
I know that there were a lot of people that tried to step in here.
Right.
Brag on some of those people, some of the people that stepped in to try and save these children.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's one thing that I got to really stress and praise is our brave men and women that arrived here, that went into that school knowing that there was an active shooter. But again, just shows the braveness, the heroism from these law enforcement officers that went in there, local, county, state, federal, all working together to try to go into the school and save lives. And of course, we know that if they weren't able to kill this suspect, there could have been more lives lost. So we got to praise those law enforcement, those brave law enforcement, and also offer condolences and prayers to the families, to the community of Uvalde as well.
Are you guys able to release just yet how that happened, though? How they were able to take the gunman down?
So what we do know is that, prior to the initial incident, there's 2 different events. So prior to the initial incident, when he got into a domestic disturbance with his grandmother and shot his grandmother, the local law enforcement received a call of a crash in an armed gunman in the close proximity of the school. At that point, the gunman was able to make entry into the school, and it just goes to show you the complete evil that this suspect had. Just shooting children, adults, anybody that was in front of him, he was shooting every single person. And that's when we talk about the brave men and women that arrived on scene, went into that school. They were met with gunfire by the gunman. He was wearing body armor, some type of ballistic armor. He was able to shoot several police officers. A tactical team arrived on scene, a special response team. They were able to encounter the gunman as well. There was an exchange of gunfire. They were able to shoot the suspect, and the suspect is deceased. And
then just one last question, because I think a lot of parents were asking us this. They were talking about there being some sort of ceremony, some sort of graduation thing going on here at school. This isn't an open door policy school. How was he able to get in? Did he barge his way in?
Well, that's what we're trying to determine too as well, right? Part of this investigation, working with the school officials, with superintendents, all the local officials here involved with the school, trying to determine exactly how this gunman was able to make entry into the school, and also what type of security measures were in place, looking at surveillance cameras. So it's all part of the investigation right now.
Okay. Thank you, LT. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.